Today, we're going to cover the 5 leadership soft skills that everyone needs to know, because everyone's a leader, regardless of if they're a friend, parent, executive, business owner. The need for great leaders is universal. In this video, we're going to explore what those soft skills are, so stay tuned. I'm LizJSimpson, founder of the Big Money Movement, accompanied by
Cheryl Parks
and Heather Petherick,
our esteemed coaches at the Big Money Movement. So I'm going to kick it off to you all first. 5 soft skills. Here we go. What's number 1? Numero uno.
Number 1, I have to say, is listening.
Please. Oh my gosh.
I have to say listening. I just feel like
Yes,
if you're a leader, that should be number 1 on your list. And listening to understand, I think the saying is seek to understand,
And to be understood.
right? Then to be understood. So if you're a leader, you want to be talking to, whether it's your team, your clients, your family, wherever you're leading, to understand what motivates the people that you're working with. And where do they, what's their experience? What's the narrative that plays in their head? And this isn't nickel therapy. That's not what we're talking
What's
about.
nickel therapy?
Yeah.
I've never heard that
therapy.
before.
Yeah, tell us.
Sign me up, please.
Nickel therapy is literally you're listening to someone and you get so deep in the problem that you start saying, oh, well, here's, this is why you're thinking this way. And I think you should be. That's not helping get to a solution. You're still living in the problematic area.
Okay.
And that person has not asked you to be their nickel therapist.
Okay.
Yes. Their non-credentialed nickel therapist, right?
Okay.
So you
Okay.
want,
Got
you're
it.
looking to move toward a solution by listening and understanding. So that's why you seek to understand before you want to be understood. So I think listening has to be it. And I'll bring up a story about one of our members. We'll call her Karen. Okay. So Karen is running an agency and she's got a small team, doing really, really well.
Phenomenally well.
I love the way she's just interjecting herself and introducing her team and bringing them all forward. But lo and behold, there's a client that did not want to give the rest of her team their credibility. The client didn't really want to listen to what the team had to say because he had come on board when Karen was actually managing things on her own.
Yeah.
And what I love about this story is she not only listened to her team that was saying, we can't get into implementation. The person's not doing what we need them to do.
Yeah, there's resistance here.
Right. When you're not engaged, we're not getting traction. But she also listened to the client to understand, what is it? Where's the gap? Why are you not working with the team that I've put in place to help? And so there was that dialogue. So, like as you say, long story long, I love Karen's story, and I also just think listening is such a big deal.
How listening helped her resolve that issue by listening to both sides of the party, and then as the leader, deciding the way forward. Yeah.
100%. And I want to give Karen credit because she shows that behavior consistently.
Yeah.
Right? So, I remember that situation with the client. I remember there was another situation where they had another client that, for that client, they needed to transition out. And I think they were looking for, I think it was a billing concern. Yes. And so the way she models and exhibits leadership, even in the questions that she asks and her concern and discernment for how do I make sure my team feels empowered. What's interesting about her questions is she's listening to the team. She also has a heart for the needs of the clients she serves. And she's trying to navigate this space of how do I serve the client in excellence? How do I solve the problem? But how do I empower my team in the process? And so, to your point, she's listening at all levels. And then she comes to us as a sounding board to say, let me practice this, let me get this out so that I can honor all parties in the solution. And she just keeps exhibiting that behavior, which, as an outsider, I'm like, I have so much respect for her as a leader. Yeah, from that. I love that you brought her up.
So if we're talking about leadership traits, I love that you mentioned listening. For me, it's around self-awareness. I think that's another key trait and skill that we need to develop as leaders.
Yes.
And it dovetails a little bit into what you're saying about listening and knowing what our communication styles is. The more self-aware we can become as leaders, the more powerful we are in helping manage those around us, because we start to see similar behavior patterns or different behavior and communication styles from our own. And it is, I jokingly say it's like a spidey sense or a superpower, that the better we become of self-aware of how we communicate, where our strengths and where our weaknesses are, We also develop, which I think is the next important leadership, which is a leadership trait, which is empathy, right?
Oof,
when we know
say
we
that.
ain't so perfect and our
Say
stuff
that.
smells, we can have a whole lot more patience, generosity, and empathy for the other human beings on our team. And look, we're all human beings. And the more we have permission to show up as ourselves, both the good and sometimes the weak and the folly, there's a real camaraderie. There's a real strength in coming together of a leader, of a team, when we know we are accepted as our full shining selves. And sometimes, there's some shining and there's some smelling elements, right? Right?
In all the senses.
But we can't embrace, a person's full self unless we are self-aware, right? If we accept and embrace ourselves, right? As soon as we start judging ourselves, guess what? We're judging others, right? You can't have one and not the other. So for me, self-awareness and this empathy goes hand in hand. They are distinct skills, but they amplify each other to make truly powerful leadership.
I agree. I 100% agree. I know we use this phrase like how you do one thing is how you do everything over and over.
Yeah.
And when you talked about the self-awareness, it's like, well, if I have compassion and I take the time to, know myself and have compassion for myself and have empathy for myself, then that carries over to how I behave with others, right? And interact with others. So I love that. So we have listening, we have self-awareness,
Yes.
we have empathy. This
Yes.
is a good list. I like this. All right, I'm gonna throw one more on that one.
Okay.
All right, so my next one that I will add is vision, right? I
Oh,
believe
yeah.
leaders are visionaries,
Have to
right? And so I think the call for leaders is to cast a vision, and it's the ability to articulate that vision and demonstrate that vision in a way that others are bought in and they feel empowered and they want to contribute and they're stretched in some ways because you're getting their best performance, right? And applying that and aligning that to the vision. And when I think of vision as a leader, I think it also goes to communication, because it's not just seeing, it's how you communicate
Yes.
it, right? Because when I think of ineffective teams or some of the leaders that weren't as powerful in my life, it was because I really didn't understand. Like, I didn't understand the why. I wasn't sure where we were going. And I'm like, Simon Sinek says start with why. Like, you get the best out of people when they're like, oh, that's why we're doing it.
Yes.
And if I understand the why, I can have some grace for the missteps, or I may not understand the decision making, but I'm like, all right, well, maybe you don't know something I know. Let's try this to see if this gets us to the path. Yeah. And then I feel like I can contribute, because if I don't agree with the path we're taking, I'm like, well, if this is the destination, here are my thoughts and my insights. Here's how I can leverage my gifts and skills, and here's how I can be used to contribute to this vision. And from an emotional standpoint, like when I think of great leaders, it's like, they inspired me. Like, it's like they painted a picture in my mind, and I'm like, wow, that's a beautiful masterpiece. Like, wow, I'm excited, right? Like the journey is worth it if that's what the destination looks like. And so I think leadership, whether it's a vision for where you're wanting to take a business, or a vision for how our family could be, or a vision for what our friendship could create, like just being able to articulate that and communicate that, I think is important. So that would be the fourth one I would say.
I do want to jump in on that,
Please,
because I
yes.
think this is key. What comes up for me as you're talking about that, Liz, is when we're able to communicate and point to a vision, a compelling vision of where we're trying to take the organization and create outcomes for clients. When you paint that compelling vision, that's when you ignite the discretionary effort of a team.
Ooh,
Instead
that's
of just
good.
hiring a bunch of box
Say
checkers
that.
and information direction followers, when a team is motivated and inspired, moving towards that vision, that's when we get the most creativity, the most resilience, that discretionary effort that you don't get when a leader is shut down, just giving direction, and doesn't have that empathy, doesn't have self-awareness, right? That command control, right? So discretionary effort is key, but it only comes when we've really painted a great picture as a leader.
Agreed.
There are whole books written on that. So
Right.
I came up in the Great Game of Business environment, where the idea of Great Game of Business, I believe written by Jack Welch, was actually to give access to the profit and loss statement, the P&L, to everyone in the organization. The person that's on the front line doing the work, the person that is in the building doing security, safety, cleaning. And there was a P&L meeting, that profit and loss meeting we'd have once a month, open the books to look and see how profitable the business was. And then you would get all of these ideas from the people that were actually on the front line
Yes.
about extra steps in the process. Or I'm not sure why we're doing this when our goal is over here, but someone added this piece to it and we don't really need that piece. Or there could be new regulations or compliance pieces, right? And so it's like, how do you add another layer in without taking away from efficiency and performance? So I love that because I felt like everyone was empowered to give their insights and ideas about the process to get to a better place.
Yeah, cool.
Agreed. And it takes a shape of its own. Like it takes on a shape of its own. You know, obviously I have a very small business, but even in that I knew the vision was bigger than me, but it seems like every time a new team member comes to the team, the vision takes a new shape.
Yes.
Because they add something to it beyond what I could imagine, right? And that's the beauty of a team or a partnership or a family. It's that having all of those different minds contributing to the vision. I appreciate that. The fifth one I would say, I think just aligns with what we've just talked about is resilience, right? Because, yes, you want to listen, you want to be self-aware, you want to have empathy, you want to make sure you can cast a vision, but, leaders need to be resilient. And when we talk about resilience, it's the ability to keep going, right?
Yeah.
It's the ability to, shake off the dust, roll up your sleeves, skin your knee a little bit, and keep marching forward. One thing I'll say about years ago with the pandemic that we had, right? The coronavirus pandemic. And I felt like it was very telling about who the leaders were, right? Because I feel like leaders stand up and they take up space, even in times of uncertainty, even in times of loss, right? And I was paying attention to people who are self-proclaimed leaders, who are very quiet, or they were mirroring the noise in the marketplace.
Yeah.
And I paid attention to those who said, I am going to go against the grain, and I'm going to cast a vision for another possibility. I'm going to encourage, I'm going to take what is, because what good does it do to just echo the noise of all is lost?
Yeah, the chaos.
Right, the chaos,
uncertainty,
right?
the fear.
So how do I inspire and how do I lead with resilience? Like clearly I'm going through things, but how do I get up and compel and lead others to do that and assure them that there's a better future? And I was paying attention to that, and I was inspired by those who showed resilience in the midst of the storm. And I think there's a unique skill set there, because there are times where as leaders, we are wounded and we're hurt. And we have to have grace and compassion and space to mend our wounds, but also know I've got to call a team or those that I'm leading to say, all right, let's keep going. And that resilience, I think, is really critical.
Yeah. I think just, underlying is transparency. I think that's so helpful, right? So you can authenticity, genuine transparency. In uncertain times, like we need to know that leaders don't have answers. Don't pretend that you have the answer to something that there's no answer to.
Yep. Just keep going. Like when the going gets tough, as leaders, we're trying to inspire a population to keep going and believe that there's a future possibility. Speaking of hope, it's been exciting because in the midst of the pandemic and in today's age and just where the world is going in this digital age, there is so much opportunity to do business with organizations, right? Yet and still. So if you want to learn more about how to get corporate clients today, right now, for your business, click that next video. We'll see you there. Bye.